because you're a cop, why should you have the right to tote a gun around just because you have a badge?
And you're saying we shouldn't be armed?
You shouldn't have guns at all.
Okay, shooter going into a university, then we're just gonna let him shoot.
Guys, John Claymore here, and I've been working on this video here the past week or so. It's a video from Jubilee, which I will be linking the full video in the description box. We're gonna kind of react to some of the things that are kicked around between these two factions, obviously cops versus ex-convicts, and why it is that the convicts think that cops should not be armed, or at least one of these guys. But we're going to be talking about this, and it's going to be roughly the first 8 or 9 minutes of this video. But one of the reasons why it's taking me a while to work on this is because YouTube keeps on copywriting every time I upload it. Well, a lot of it's because of a certain 2-minute section in the video. So that's why I'm going to be leaving the full episode in the description box for you guys. Now, I want to go ahead and get this out of the way. I'm not somebody who is all back the blue. I think I have a much more rational way of thinking about police, which is they're needed, they're necessary. But then again, there are situations where cops can go too far. Now, outside of reacting to this, we're going to talk about the 21-foot rule in the second half of the video. We're also going to be talking about why it is that tasers are not always effective. And I'm also going to be giving you guys an example of when policing goes wrong. But make sure you guys stick around for the full video because there's a good amount here to discuss.
Agree with the prompt. Call.
Oh, and one more thing too. Expect there to be an interruption roughly every minute to minute and a half to possibly 2. This is due to copyright reasons.
Should not carry guns.
I mean, there are so many countries in this world that do not have this level of violence within its law enforcement department or any other department. Guns themselves are not the issue. It's the finger behind the gun, because you don't know the mentality, the mind, you know, the heart of the person, and people, things trigger people and they snap. And no one exempt. Police officers are human beings too. They can snap.
If you took guns away from the uniform, I guarantee you, like, half of them would not be there working.
No,
you know?
it's the power.
If you had to struggle to submit a perpetrator and to, like, actually do work, police work, like, it's not just about reaching for your gun 99% of the time. So it's like if the gun wasn't part of the uniform, a lot of them wouldn't take that enabling role that they want to take as officers, you know?
Right.
Okay, now right off the bat, that is obviously not very bright. Let me go ahead and break it down for you, the reason why. Ask yourself a question. Would you be a police officer if you were not allowed to have a gun? Seriously. Ask yourself that question. Would you be a cop if you were not allowed to have a gun? I mean, think about it really quick. You deal with criminals who are on drugs. You deal with people who are trying to hurt you. You deal with people who are trying to hurt other people. There are laws in place to protect against third parties to use force. So right then and there, man, you know, you kind of answered your own question. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that power is not a problem. And you're going to hear this lady's story right here in a second. And I will agree that there is a certain percentage of police officers that probably do the uniform, probably do the job just simply for power. But still at the exact same time, when you look at the streets, when you look at the world around you, would anybody take this job without a gun? I mean, kind of a common sense answer to this guy's thought here.
In front of my building, I was harmed by an older person, older man. When I got away, I went to the police. The detective took me to the hospital, everything, checked me out. You know what the police officer did with having a gun and everything else? Pulled me over, saying he was taking me back home, pulled me over on a dark side of a street and raped me. Because of the uniform, the badge, and the gun that made me freeze. But you, as a police officer, saying that you were here to protect and to serve, you allowed your power, your uniform, your gun, everything else to make you think that that was okay. And this happens a lot.
Two things. If this did in fact happen, and I'd like to get you guys' thoughts on this, then obviously this is a tragedy. It should not have occurred. However, I do got to say this right here. If the uniform does corrupt, then chances are the person that took on the uniform that would eventually become corrupt probably had something already inside them that already made them corrupt to begin with, meaning that they were probably already corrupted before they put on the uniform. Now, I'm just trying to use a very rational thinking here. And that is what it sounds like to me. Now, as far as the lady's story is concerned, it may be true. I personally have a hard time buying it. But if it did happen, then obviously it shouldn't have happened. It was probably a piece of that 3% that, quite frankly, was bad. But at the same time, though, I just have a hard time believing about it. I'd like to get you guys' thoughts on this. And obviously, it's tragic if it did occur, but I'm pretty sure that that individual was already corrupted before that. And also something else, too. I can also hear somebody in the comment section asking the question, did you make yourself available? Now, I can already hear that, and I'm not saying that's the case. But still, at the same time, though, it seems to me like this officer was probably already corrupted long before they put on the uniform, or may have gotten corrupted while on the force. My mouse doesn't work.
It's a lot.
They want to abuse other people. They want to, tyrants over other people. So they choose jobs like that. Like, what if you want to help other people? Why can't you go be a humanitarian? There's oceans to clean up. Instead, like, everybody just wants to be out here taking rights away from others and abusing people and getting guns. And the moment you start copying an attitude, literally click. Let's go.
But I don't want to do that to them as they do it to us.
Can the disagree step forward?
Now, there is one more thing that I need to add to this little discussion. I didn't address this earlier, but the topic of being able to subdue criminals. I don't know if you know this or not, but criminals come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. Somebody who's about 5'7", 5'8" is probably not going to be able to subdue someone who's 6'4", 6'5". I'll talk about that more in the section that leads into the 21-foot rule right afterwards. But the thing is this right here. Criminals come in all shapes, sizes, and forms, and oftentimes are on drugs. Not exactly easy to subdue somebody, and I understand that cops are kind of trained to go after, and this is not true in all cases, but some cops are required to take on 2 or 3 people at once. I don't know about you, but if I'm fighting 3 guys at once, it's about survival, so guess what? If I think I'm going to get killed, I'm probably going to go to the gun. So it's like a complete, total lack of understanding. Almost makes me think that these people are actually simping for the criminal behavior, if you guys know what I mean.
If someone else has a gun, you got to defend yourself too. It's just the way you use it. I'm not saying that you should use guns, but I mean, if you have a gun, then you have to use it, of course, but not use it just for traffic stops or people with mental illnesses, stuff like that. That's out. If they have a knife or a stick or or a fork, like that doesn't justify anybody getting shot.
Actually, it does. Let me go and explain. What are you guys thinking are the 3 most dangerous forms of stops? Number 1, a traffic stop, a Terry stop. I'm pulling this thing up right here that kind of shows you from the Police Officers Union that, traffic stops are pretty well dangerous. Now, I went to the Law Enforcement Academy back in 2015. I graduated, but I never became a cop. But this was the number 1 thing that was mentioned was traffic stops. Traffic stops, anything and everything can go wrong at these places. Number 2, the next type of stop, mental illness. Now, I will admit that mental illness is something that cops may need more training on. But mentally ill individuals could pop off. Like they could just snap just like that right there and go crazy. Next thing you know, the taser ain't working. They're hopped up. The adrenaline is going. Taser ain't working. You'll see that here soon in the video. Also, number 3, and I probably should have led with this one, but domestic violence. Domestic violence stops are extremely dangerous for a multitude of reasons. For all you know, the husband and the wife, they could be doing this right here. They could all of a sudden team up with one another to attack you. That was one of the scenarios that we ran in law enforcement, especially during the PPCT section of the course. Also, something else, too, to go on top of this. It could be 2 dudes going at one another. It could be 2 brothers going at one another, and the situation always gets dangerous. Domestic violence stops are always dangerous. And to go on top of the point of stick or fork, if you take a fork and you jam it into somebody hard enough, you can kill them. If you hit somebody with a stick hard enough or in a certain place, guess what? You can kill them. So in a lot of these cases, deadly force is oftentimes justified.
So you're for having armed police officers?
It's if someone else has a gun,
Yeah.
if someone else.
I believe that y'all should be armed because I believe in the Constitution. I don't believe in the policing that the police force has done throughout many communities I've been in, but I do believe in rights versus laws, and I do believe that there are dangerous scenes that you go to where it is required to use them. So I have to agree that part of your, like he said, his tool belt needs to include a pistol.
Okay, good, because I was about to challenge you both and say, okay, so you mean to tell me that what happened at Michigan State University with an active shooter killing 5 students, or Ubaldi, where they went into an elementary school and killed children.
The Sandy Hook.
Sandy Hook would happen over 10 years ago. You're sitting there telling us that we shouldn't be carrying firearms?
Yeah, you shouldn't. Like, if you guys are just traffic cops and stuff like that, you guys shouldn't.
No,
if you guys are like
you're
a
not-
SWAT team.
Yeah, you're not answering my question.
Like I said, I'm just going based on what you said. You called me a predator. I'm like, I never done that in my life, right? I've been in situations where I've been shot at. I had 2 members of my department die in the last 2 months. I've been in situations where I've needed my firearm. I've needed every tool in my belt in my career. You would go out and then see half of the stuff I see. You may change your perception about what you see. It's dangerous.
So you can't call for backup.
Okay, really quick. I need to go ahead and answer this right. This whole scene about you can't call for backup, obviously not really thinking about situations. You see, the thing is this right here. If you call for backup, it's not always going to arrive on time. Situation oftentimes dictates. What if you're getting your ass kicked, or what if you're fighting 3 or 4? Even if you're behind the car, even if you're behind the vehicle, if you're behind the door and you're in a shootout, life can end in a matter of seconds. So calling for backup is not always the case. Now, if you're coming in a situation where you may be running up on a place that may have a few suspects, then obviously calling for backup might be a good idea. If you are in a traffic stop where you have someone with warrants, and by the way, we've seen several traffic stops turn deadly. What if you have someone who's got warrants and they try to get away? Okay, in that case there, you may want to call for backup. But still, the situation can oftentimes, like at the drop of a hat, suddenly get extremely dangerous and turn fatal very, very quickly. So this whole notion of should you call for backup, or sure, can you just call backup, or you can't call for backup, that's once again seems to me like somebody is either A, not knowledgeable of worldview or life, or how situations can turn, or possibly simping for criminal behavior.
What does me calling for backup having to do with
So
this?
if you work county, okay, say in my area.
I'm a county cop.
Right, and in my area, I mean, you have miles and miles of nothing around you. Your closest partner is maybe if you're lucky, 20 minutes away. Okay. In the meantime, I've got somebody that has me at gunpoint, and if I don't have a gun on my hip, I'm dead. I am a dead man walking because I have nothing that can go up against another gun.
But how do you think felons feel?
Who the hell cares how felons feel? Stop trying to break the damn law. I'm serious. Look, I understand. Look, and by the way, I do believe in rehabilitation, but I also believe in locking people up who, quite frankly, do harm, who do bad, who abuse kids. I believe in locking people up who try to kill people. Okay, I believe in shooting people who are about to kill someone else. There is a reason why third-party deadly force in third-party situations is allowed. Who the hell cares what the hell the felon thinks? Stop trying to break the freaking law. Stop doing illegal shit, and maybe you won't have this problem.
There's tasers, pepper balls, like
Societal issues are
Tasers, pepper balls, that doesn't always work. Have you guys ever seen a riot? Have you guys ever seen how a riot works? I mean, sometimes the tasers just don't work. You'll see this very here in a minute. Pepper balls? Okay, I do agree with pepper balls, but there's another problem too. Sometimes when you pepper ball someone or pepper spray somebody, guess what happens? Their adrenaline actually goes up, and they're more inclined to attack. This is part of the reason why it is that it oftentimes takes more than one cop to subdue a suspect. Sometimes it takes 2, sometimes it takes 3, sometimes it takes 5. It depends. All right? In some situations, and you'll see, are completely unnecessary. But still, at the same time, though, it's not always the most effective way of putting down a criminal or subduing one.
on the police. Like, I'm not stripping you of your rights, right? That is not, you can vote. I don't give a shit. You can vote. You can carry a gun. You can do all that. That is not my job in life. My job is, you've been accused of a crime. I got to take you to jail because that, this, and that, and the third. I'm done.
You're saying that we should have pepper spray, tasers to Michigan State University or Uvalde? Is that what you're saying? So you're telling me that if I'm a cop, I have no gun?
But also, this,
And I'll,
Well, he said to the community, like maybe.
no, that's not what he said.
Maybe for
The
like,
prompt is, or should cops be unarmed? Hold on a second. You just got done watching probably the most tragic incidents in the, probably historically, Uvalde, may I add. Just kids, for crying out loud. And what you're sitting here saying is that we shouldn't be unarmed. What does it do? What you'd like me to do if someone has an AK-47 killing kids? That's my question to you.
We actually have our own rights. You know, that we actually have our own rights to carry and defend ourselves in certain situations like that.
You know,
but
with
the
all
full
due
story-
respect, that's not the question
but
I'm
if
asking.
you want to use your
Really quick, let me go ahead and say this really quick. obviously to keep from copyright going on, I want to kind of answer one more thing about the county ordeal. If you are a county police officer, meaning that you're more than likely to be a deputy sheriff, you're going to be in areas of that county where backup's not going to show up. Like I said before, and one more thing too, a lot of these domestic violence ordeals that occur, they occur in county lines, meaning that they occur outside the city, meaning sometimes one officer is answering when obviously two need to be available. Domestic stops can be very, very deadly. And to go on top of that, it's not a guarantee that you're going to have backup. Think about something real quick. I'm going to use my home county, for example. We'll say the town of LaGrange. I'm giving you guys the town, but I'm not giving you guys the actual county itself of where I'm from. Let's say you're there and you answer a domestic violence stop, or there's a domestic incident that occurs, but the closest cop is closer to the next county line, which, by the way, would be, which, like I said, I'm not going to give out the county line, but it's about 20 miles away. That's a pretty long drive, especially at night, given the fact, especially with the adrenaline going on. And, of course, when it comes to third-party ordeal or saving kids, obviously you're going to want cops to be armed so that way they can put down the criminal. If you're killing kids, I mean, what the hell? Now, when he said we have rights, too, and that we can carry, not always the case. As a matter of fact, I think that if you're just now getting out of prison, I don't think you should be allowed to carry a weapon at all, at least not for the first couple of years. Yes, I'm very, very pro-Second Amendment. But when it comes to people who've been in prison or maybe been in prison for a while, who may have been a threat or a repeat offender, being able to carry, not entirely okay with it. But they can own black powder weapons. Now, guys, I talk about carry in the sense of pistol versus rifle. There are some places that allow you to open carry a rifle. I'm talking about pistols for the most part. You want to go ahead and just get that out of the way. But the mere fact that you don't want police officers to be able to protect third-party victims or protect a third party, that type of level of thinking is absolutely freaking insane.
I'm asking you if you were, okay, I'll ask in a different way. If you're a police officer and you have no firearms, you got your pepper spray, you have your taser, you have your baton, and you are responding to Uvalde Elementary School where there's an active shooter with an AK-47, what are you going to do?
I would say that I would call for backup to the proper authorities that would be entitled to have those weapons that are not in the general community.
I get what he's saying.
No, but what entitled to have weapons? Who? What agency?
So like the
SWAT
UK.
in the pub.
Yeah, what he's saying. Like United Kingdom, how United Kingdom, their special force,
Really quick, before we let this guy talk, and like I said, trying to avoid copyright, we're going to call for backup. Okay, well, this is what I'm about to say. He brought up Uvalde. In the Uvalde case, part of the reason why those kids were killed so mercilessly, so fast, is because the cops waited to go in, because they were waiting for more backup and they were waiting for more word. Obviously, these convicts, these ex-cons, have no idea what the hell they're talking about, which also shows you the issues that we're having in society. There's a complete, total lack of education here, and it's not even really education. It's really common sense. As a matter of fact, common sense is a virtue that I personally think is way more important than overall education, because common sense is what you have to use on a daily basis. So your thing about Uvalde is, well, why didn't you call for backup? They did call for backup. Backup, as I said, doesn't always work. Cops need to be armed, and sometimes cops need to go ahead and act right away. It's one of the main problems I have with Uvalde. As a matter of fact, I actually got burned on Uvalde because I reported that story inaccurately at first. But there was a great big giant debate between Brandon Tatum and Heavy Duty Country about this, and even Jack Richland, Black Scout Survival. They had a discussion about this as well. And some of these cops, some of these people who sent for the cops, cannot for the life of them realize that Uvalde was a failure that, quite frankly, could have been avoided or averted had they actually done their job and operated right away, rather than calling for backup and waiting for more orders. Same thing also happened in the Stoneman Douglas case. You had an officer there who did not respond. Now, I understand that officer in that situation maybe needed to wait, but even when the backup showed up, there still wasn't even a response.
Police department have weapons, but they're regular cops.
So why should you have the ability to just tote around a gun? That's my question to you.
What's that?
My question to you is, just because you're a cop, why should you have the right to tote a gun around just because you have a badge?
No. That's not what the prompt is. The prompt is cops being unarmed. Cops being all of us.
Yeah, but you use your body, and your body, they took it like over an hour to respond when they were there. So you had the guns and you still didn't.
What I'm saying is that he's saying cops.
And that there's also a contradiction there, Scar. You see, your guy over here on your left said, why couldn't you just call for backup? Well, that's actually what happened in Uvalde. They called for backup, and they ended up being forced to wait a while. So when the backup did arrive, they still had to wait for orders to go in. And, of course, the security camera footage, of course, showed you what exactly was going on there. Uvalde was a disgrace, all right? It was an absolute disgrace. Now, guys, I'm going to let this next portion run to where we get to the final point of this particular section. It'll be right around 9 minutes and 50 seconds, but you're probably going to hear me, probably going to see that I'm probably going to interchange, just butt in one more time, obviously for copyright reasons.
Cops is a very, when you say cops to me, you're talking everybody. Every single cop, okay? And you're saying we shouldn't be unarmed. Okay.
You shouldn't have guns at all.
Okay, so you know what? Next time there's a big active shooter going into a university, then I guess we're just gonna let him shoot all the students.
So I have a question for you. So all those countries that don't have their police officers carrying guns?
Not many, just so you know.
Oh, I know very well. That's the work that I do.
Okay.
So, and even been there to see that. But what I'm saying is that, have you ever thought about how those countries respond to those situations?
And you're going to see how one of these countries responded to the situation, and you're going to see here very, very soon when we get to the taser section why it doesn't always work.
We do the same?
We absolutely could not do the same because we have criminals here, and I'm not speaking of y'all, but there are people here that still carry regardless of if it's against the law. If you were to take guns away from illegals, criminals, people that are not from here, I would 100% agree that officers don't need guns and that we could go do
because
what?
I think the mass shooters are not the ones, the immigrants, and the taking it all away.
No, and that's what I'm just giving examples.
Yeah, but
I'm just
so
giving
the
examples.
She's right. I mean,
Yeah, so the mass shooting and all that is
A constitutional right to bear arms, right, allows every.
Now, really quick, before I get to this last part, because he's going to make the point that I made at the very, very beginning. Here's the thing. If you try to, it sounds great in theory, take the guns away from the criminals and those who might commit crimes. The problem is that anytime you try that, more crime ends up coming as a result of this. And what I mean by that is when you take guns away from regular people, like regular good old-fashioned people, which, by the way, the government, and I kind of led in by saying criminals and people who commit crimes, that's because the government's trying to label us all as a bunch of criminals. They're trying to label good, honest people as a bunch of criminals. That is what the hell they are trying to do. They are constantly doing this. You see, anytime somebody tries to come up with a gun control bill, you got to realize that you're punishing 99%, you're punishing 99.9% to be exact, to get that 0.1%. It's completely redundant. It doesn't do anything to help. If anything, I think that everybody needs to be armed. Every good person out there needs to be armed, open, or concealed carry. I promise if you do that, I'm pretty sure the crime itself will go down, especially if you give them the ability to defend themselves or possibly partake in citizen's arrest. It will, for the most part, drop the overall violent crime. One more thing that's got to be said, too, because I can hear somebody screaming about this in the comment section. Dude, this society, America's society, has always been somewhat violent, meaning that because of our freedom, we're allowed to check one another. If criminals do some very, very bad stuff, oftentimes you're allowed to put a stop to that right off the bat. Yes, it's true we have a violent society, but we also have a society that oftentimes likes to check itself. It's kind of like self-governance. It's kind of like self-policing. We just haven't been doing a very good job over the last few years. I think if we could get representatives that would actually give the people the right to actually do a little bit more with their Second Amendment, that right there would help. Of course, that there meaning citizen's arrest, being able to protect in the event of a third party, being able to actually use that weapon against violent criminals. I think if we did that, a lot of the crime would in fact go down.
Everybody in this country to bear arms. Well, not everybody. Not everybody. Let me be specific. If you're allowed by a citizen to carry guns, the amount of guns that we have in America, doesn't it outweigh the people that we have? Hey, these countries, they don't have a Second Amendment. They don't have a constitutional right to bear arms. So it's a lot easier to say, you know what? Y'all can't bear arms, so y'all can't bear arms. In this country, we can. So I'm just being, like I said, everything's anecdotal. I've been in situations where I needed my gun, and you were absolutely right. Would I do the job without one? Hell no, because I've been in situations where I needed one, and you know what? I had it.
Now, before we get to the next part, which of course is going to be the last half of the video, I'm pulling something up for you guys. This right here is stabbings. This right here is crimes that occur in other countries, okay? Actual crimes. You're probably going to say, damn, the United States of America has a lot of violent crime. Okay, cool. But if you actually look very, very close at European nations, you will see that stabbings, you will see that all kinds of other violent crimes occur. Now, what do you think the best deterrent is against a knife? A gun. What the hell do you think the best deterrent is against a club? A gun. You see what I'm saying? Also, something else too, a lot of those countries are much, much smaller than the United States. Okay, the U.S., as I said before, there's a lot of criminals in this country, a lot of crime. Of course, it occurs mostly in big cities. Well, guess what? If you look at European nations, you'll see a correlation that, guess what? A lot of the crime, a lot of the violence in those countries is happening in their biggest cities. And like I said before, a lot of these stabbings are occurring, and they're occurring without the ability to defend yourself against them. So right there off the bat, you just made an extremely good case for the Second Amendment right there. And these criminals, obviously, they're either A, simping for the criminal behavior, or B, they don't have any actual knowledge. I would argue that the lady here doesn't really have the full knowledge, and I would argue that Scar over here doesn't have the knowledge, and that I think the other woman is just coming off some bad experience. But this guy right here, and you can even kind of see it in his facial expression by the way he kind of moves, especially his eyes and whatnot. He's just a good old-fashioned repeat offender. He'll probably be back in prison here in the near future, as well as probably Scar over there too. Guys, let's go ahead and go to the next section, and then we'll go ahead and close the video down. Now, guys, I want to show you something really quick. This right here is a video, a training video from 1991. It's the LA County Sheriff's Department. Now, guys, there's this little rule that I learned about in the Law Enforcement Academy. And as I said before, I'm not a cop, never have been a cop. At the very, very most, I just went to the academy and got certified, but I never got hired. Probably a good reason why is because at that time I was kind of working on some other things that were personal. And it probably was not a good idea for me to be on the street at that time because, as I may have mentioned before, I'm not totally in the back the blue ranks. I have a much more reasonable position towards law enforcement, which is there is a time when they are needed and a time where they kind of are not. Also, not to mention the fact that you need them to help coordinate fire and EMS, which is part of the reason why I'm leaving that there's not enough Chaz Harder, that video from Demonetized, which was made by Short Fat Otaku, because you'll actually see it towards the end of that video why it is that these people obviously did not understand that. But this video right here is about, I'd say, about 1 minute and 45 seconds. I had to clip it down to try to get the extra minutia out. So even with cops being armed, it's not always a guarantee. Just to kind of play devil's advocate here, let's go ahead and roll this, and I'll catch you guys on the other side.
Once the attack begins. At about 5 feet, the average officer can't even get his sidearm unholstered. Unless your sidearm or baton is already out, you'll have to rely on physical control at 5 feet or less. At about 10 feet, you might get your sidearm out, but you probably won't get a shot off. A suspect with a knife can close 7 paces and deliver deadly force in less than 1 1/2 seconds. For the average officer to deliver 2 rounds against an attacker who starts moving at 10 feet, the sidearm must already be drawn and ready to shoot. At about 15 feet, your chances get a little better if you're alert, anticipate danger, and are skilled with your equipment. But to deliver 2 rounds center of mass, your hand would already have to be on your sidearm when the attack begins. Reveal that in most cases, a minimum reactionary gap of 21 feet is required to react and deliver at least 2 rounds and to have enough time to move out of the attacker's path.
Now, you look at that and you're like, wow, 21 feet. 21 feet. They can run up on you and do 21 feet. Well, I guess the gun is quite frankly pointless. Okay, well, if that right there is the case, then I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now that maybe a taser is pointless, because maybe a taser doesn't work all the time, as you're about to see right here. Now, guys, this particular clip does have some pictures rolled over the top of it, obviously to, let's just say, not get me in trouble with the community guideline standards, but you'll definitely hear the taser, and not only will you hear the taser, but you'll also see the guy's reaction after he's been tased.
Come away, you ain't my territory. I suggest you put that down. I suggest you hit me. Hit me. What's your reason for being there? Offshore stuff. So what? You're too slow. Come hit me. Hit me. Let's see what happens. Stay down, you subjects. Try me. Come on. What if you touch me? Who's territory you? Dead.
Straight up, no lie, walked off like nothing. Now, granted, this is not every single situation, but I'm pretty sure you guys are kind of getting the gist here when I'm saying to you that it's very possible that maybe, just maybe, a gun is needed what if that said individual was on top of another police officer being the literal hell of him? I mean, obviously tasers did not work on him, correct? Oh, I'll do you one better. What if the situation is 2, 3, 4, 5 on 1, as I may have mentioned before? What if that's the case? You're going to need another level of force to elevate to combat the criminal. And not to mention, what if the criminal themselves is hopped up on drugs? Now, gang, before I get to the last point, I do want to tell you guys a very, very quick story, okay? When I was in the law enforcement academy, and the way we ran things here is that halfway through the academy, you go to this thing called SCAT. Now, SCAT is a program where you learn the initials on how to subdue a suspect. You'll learn stuff like, say, the jugular notch takedown, which is very quick, painful. They do it on you itself. You learn the mandibular one, which is where they come up behind right here in the mandibular area. You also learn a couple of other things, just like throw somebody, just simple cop stuff. You know, just very, very basic things. And by the way, you learn more of it when you actually get to your police station because they will train you more. And obviously, on-the-ground training is the best thing you have. You're a field training officer. Department regulations, all that stuff there, use of force when you can actually use it. That type of stuff you learn from that in the academy. And, of course, you learn a large portion of it at the actual job that you go to. But the thing that I want to kind of point out or kind of bring up is this here. During that training, you will also get patrol techniques, and you'll also get rapid deployment, which you probably think to yourself, rapid deployment, which is basically like going after like school shooters and stuff like that. But there is one thing called Red Man and PPCT. Red Man is the course where you essentially beat the hell out of one another, or you have to beat the hell out of the guy in the red suit. You've probably seen training videos of it. In reality, what really happens is that they beat the hell out of you. They force you to chase them down, to do a suspect with everything that you've been trained with. And it can be hard. It can be difficult. Like, I especially had a difficult time. Look, I'm 5'11", 200 pounds, but oftentimes I don't think very, very much before I get into a situation. So it took me a little bit longer than it needed to be. This is also another sign that told me, look, maybe you weren't meant to be the police. But then there was this other little thing that occurred during PPCT training, which, by the way, was a scenario. The scenario was that I was the police officer who was getting his ass kicked by the 3 criminals. In that situation, and I know there was a very, very brief pause, the instructor walked through the procedure of how you would take care of this. While they're slow walking the procedure and then going through the procedure, and I'm supposedly the cop who's getting the hell kicked out of him, I couldn't help but think to myself, I'm already dead. You guys have already wasted a lot of time. You did not use your guns to save my life. You're over here pepper spraying and tasing these people. Meanwhile, the pepper spray, if you've never been pepper sprayed before, being pepper sprayed absolutely sucks. I got pepper sprayed in the academy. I also got CS 3 times when I was in the Marine Corps, boot camp, the fleet, and then, of course, in the field. And then I got it one more time. It was actually 4. That crap does, in fact, suck. But once again, though, pepper spray is not always 100% effective either. By the way, quick little piece of advice. If you ever get pepper sprayed, in order to properly wash that off, just know this right here. You're going to use cold water, or you may even use milk and blot it, of course, because it does leave a greasy substance on your head. The thing is this right here. If you continue to use cold water, like if you keep splashing the area, which, by the way, you're going to need to use, it could reignite. Also, something else, too, if you ever go home that night and you think for a second you can take a shower, because most of the effects after a while do begin to go away, keep your boxers on. The reason why is because it can actually wash down and get to your junk. I was warned about this long before, like 2 or 3 days before the academy, because I got sprayed on a Monday. I got warned on a Friday that you need to keep your boxers on. I did that, no problem, no issue or anything. Trust me, if I had been burned in that area, I would have actually told you. But they kind of warned me about it. But I can tell you right now, the law enforcement instructors did not tell the other guys. I told 2 more guys, the other 6 guys we were in the academy with, I said, screw it, let them do whatever. But I assume they also already knew. Maybe it was kind of jacked on my part. However, there are times when policing can go a little bit too far, as I'm going to show you right now.
What are y'all doing?
Wait a second. Why are you in my house? Why are you in my house? Guys, I'm asking a question. Why are you
For what?
You're a piercing, okay? In your home. It was not unlawful. Body art without a license. Guys, chill. What is really going on here? You got them?
Yes, I got all of it.
Guys, you're in the cameras. This is ridiculous. Piercing his son's ear without a license. Takes 3 cops, 4 cops, coming into my house without permission. No permission. They busted in my front door. This is the boy right here. He got a pierced ear by his dad. These cops busted in my door. Busted in the front door.
This right here occurred in Arkansas. And it was over a father piercing his son's ear. And his son wanted his father to pierce his ear. Completely, totally jacked up. Completely messed up. And it makes you kind of think that maybe what they were really doing is maybe this guy had something else on him and they just kind of needed an excuse to kind of get him. And I don't know, maybe get him to confess or whatnot. The fact of the matter is, it's rare. There are times when policing can go a little bit too far, as you guys already saw. But for the most part, police officers are in fact necessary. As far as them carrying a gun, well, I kind of concluded at the beginning of the video, and I'm going to kind of stay with exactly what I just said a while ago. Yes, police officers do need that firearm. Yes, they do need it, because God knows what the hell they may run into. Now, does that right there mean that we should give our police officers 100% undying devotional support? No. However, it does mean that we do need to have a rational, and I mean a very, very rational way of thinking about law enforcement, especially going in the future. Because as this world continues to get more and more dire and rights are beginning to get taken away, and you start to see that in some situations cops aren't exactly your friend, you better understand that at the end of the day, they're there to do a job. But that job could very, very much, in fact, turn on you. Even though that I just said that there, though, it is important that police officers do, in fact, have a firearm. And obviously, those guys that were talking to the cops in that debate, obviously, they're still somewhat simping for the criminal behavior. Sometimes people don't change. Guys, John Claymore, if you guys like this content, please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign up in the comment section. I would love to get you guys' thoughts, and I'll see you guys later.